This lesson covers the installation of Windows Server Update Services. Windows Server Update Services is available through Server Manager. I can go to Manage, Add Roles and Features. It's a role-based or feature-based installation. I would select my target server. And then under my roles, I see Windows Server Update Services. I could also deploy this through PowerShell. If I navigate over and open up an elevated PowerShell window, if I do my Get Windows feature, if I scroll up past the features, I can see Update Services. If I was going to install through PowerShell, I would be installing the Update Services. And you'll see here already there's a number of different subcomponents. These will also be exposed through the Graphical Server Manager interface. Make sure your server is patched before I start this installation. WSUS is going to give me an on-premises catalog and deployment point for the servers in my installation. Ordinarily, they talk via the internet directly to the Microsoft Update service. With WSUS, my servers will instead talk to my WSUS on-premises server. And my WSUS server will talk to the Microsoft Update service, find out the patches that are available, and download the ones that I select. I'm talking about servers, but this can also patch desktops. It can patch other Microsoft applications. And I can even deploy a hierarchy of WSUS servers in my organization. I can have a master WSUS server that downloads from Microsoft, and then subordinate WSUS servers that just download content from my primary WSUS server to give access points to other locations in my company to give me scale. So I'm going to select Windows Server Update Services, and it's telling me all the other components that are required to use WSUS, including the Windows internal database, the SQL Server Express, and I want the management tools. Just accept the defaults for all of the IIS components. For WSUS, we're going to use the Windows internal database connectivity and the WSUS services. If I choose to use an external SQL Server database rather than the built-in, which really comes down to scale, I would have to add the SQL Server connectivity component. WSUS will download the patches from Microsoft Update to a local folder. And so what I have to do is give it a valid path on my machine to which to store the updates that it downloads. So I'm going to say C updates. I can say to automatically restart if required. If I wanted to do this through PowerShell, I could at this point export out the configuration settings and then use the generated XML file to deploy via PowerShell in the future. So I'm going to hit install, and it's now going to go through and install all the various components that make up the complete WSUS role. The installation is now completed, and it's telling me there are post-installation tasks. I can hit close, and I can still access them from the notification. So here I'm going to say launch post-installation tasks. You can see it's actually going through some of that configuration right now, setting up the basic database schema and starting to do the first steps to actually give me my Windows Server Update services. Once this completes, I'll then drive through a wizard to go through some of the other initial configurations required. I can now see that the feature installation succeeded, and I'll just have to now do configuration on my first launch. So I can close this down, and now if I go to Tools, I'll see I have Windows Server Update Services. Once again, typically we manage this remotely, but if I am connected to a server, I might like to add a pin to the taskbar. Now I'm going to go through and give it the information so it can connect to the Microsoft Update service and pull down the catalog, which lists all the categories and types of applications that can be patched, and then actually start to pull down those updates. I can say if I want to join the improvement program. Am I using an upstream server? Remember I mentioned there could be a hierarchy. Well, if this is the first WSUS server, then it's going to synchronize from Microsoft Update. If, however, I have an existing WSUS server and I want to pull down approved updates from that, I would say synchronize from another server and give those details. Notice I can also say it's a replica. If I select the replica option, then any of the approvals, the settings, the groups would all be copied down. If I have to connect via a proxy to the internet, I can enter that proxy information here. Now it's going to go and connect. And this initial connection is so it can pull down what languages are available, what applications and products, so I can then make my selection. So this is actually going through now and connecting to the Microsoft Update service to pull down the information so I can make my initial configurations. Now that the catalog download is completed, I can continue with the installation. It's telling you this could take several minutes. I've seen this take 10-20 minutes, so don't panic. As long as the bar is still moving, just let it continue. Now I'll hit next. So I want to select the languages that I need. In my case, I just need English, which is the default. You'll see all the other languages that are available. Next, I select which products I want to update, all of these in the future. But for right now, I'm really interested in Windows, but all I care about is Windows Server 2012 R2 and Windows Server 2016. And also, I want Windows Defender to give me the definition updates. And then what classifications? Drivers can be very dangerous because there are so many different vendors, you could quickly fill up your server. But certainly you may want update rollups, updates, upgrades, i.e. new cumulative updates, new branches specifically for upgrades. If you want service packs, feature packs, tools. Do you want to synchronize automatically? I typically synchronize what is considered out of hours, so I'll shift this back. And just once a day. Now you may wonder why once a day. Think of things like definition updates for anti-malware. Those update every day at least. I can say to begin the initial synchronization now. And now I can just hit finish. At this point it's going through and I can expand this out. I can see my computers. If I collect any, my status is starting to find information about machines. And under options, but I can change all of those things that I configured during that initial setup wizard. I can see automatic approvals. So for automatic approvals, I can create a new rule and I can set what do I want this to apply to. So I can say a certain classification and a certain product and who I'm approving it for. I can select this. For my classification, I can say I'm going to auto approve anything. For my product, I would select this from the various products that I want to auto approve. Now you have to be careful. Do I want to just have updates pushing through to every machine automatically? So I'm quite happy for any updates for the operating systems I'm using, and especially Defender, very few people will test malware definition updates, just to automatically be approved and target. And then you give it a name, so auto approve server OS and Defender. Now what will happen is when it finds anything that matches this rule, it will just automatically approve them. Because I'm synchronizing right now for the first time, it's not going to let me save this rule. Ordinarily, I would just be able to save that. I'm also going to add a computer group, and I'm going to call this Windows Servers. I can organize machines into different groups, so I could target different groups of machines with different levels of patches. So I'm just going to say add. It's going to create me a new group. The next part of the deployment is to actually tell machines to use this WSUS server. By default, a firewall exception already exists for the WSUS port, which here you can see is WSUS, and it's using port 8530 and 8531. Now I just need to tell the machines to use this instead of Microsoft Update. I'm going to do that through group policy. Here I have a group policy object open that I'm targeting to my servers, and I'm going to navigate to policies, administrative templates, Windows components, then all the way at the bottom is Windows Update. And I'm going to set a number of different policies. I'm turning on the automatically restart at a scheduled time if there are updates. I'm turning on to use automatic updates and to auto download and automatically schedule the installation. I'm doing this at 3 a.m. every day, so that's after I'm doing my synchronization on the WSUS server. So it would have had time to pull down the updates, and then the machines can synchronize from it. I'm then specifying to use an internal site. This is that server that I just installed, my 8530 port. I'm also going to download recommended updates, and I'm turning on client-side targeting, and I'm specifying that Windows servers group that I just created. And then I'm targeting this at my server's organizational unit. I'm also targeting it at my domain controllers. However, for my domain controllers, I don't want it to just automatically reboot. So I have another policy here for the override. And if I edit this policy, so it's still using all of the other settings, but for the actual application of the updates, rather than just auto restart, I'm just changing one property to auto download and notify for the installation, but don't actually reboot my boxes. So that's the only change I made. That would override the setting to auto apply. I have an order for priority, so it will override that time of the default WSUS server configuration. And then, of course, make sure your servers are in these various organizational units you're targeting with group policy. At this point, once the servers have their group policy updated, they will start checking in to your new WSUS server, and you'll start getting that information. I can check on the state of my synchronization, so that it is currently running, and I can see the current progress. Once that is completed, I could then go and create my rule, and I would start getting my updates approved. See the current state, and it's currently got 621 updates that are known to it. You have now deployed Windows Server Update Services.